his priority coming into the next legislative session. But Governor, I want to start. You just got back from DC. How's the president?
I'm happy to be back in Montana. So I just want to, Chris, I want to say thank you to you for hosting tonight, Mountain States, and there's a lot of friends in the audience. Thanks for coming out. We had the difference between the prior administration and this one is really remarkable. Just over this recent visit, I got significant FaceTime with Secretary Burgum, Secretary Wright, Ambassador Greer, the Trade Ambassador, Marco Rubio, Brooke Rollins, Secretary of Agriculture, Scott Turner at HUD. The accessibility of this administration is really unsurpassed. We couldn't even get a return phone call from the prior administration, and now we're working collaboratively to advance Montana's interests, and it's really refreshing.
State of the Union tonight, so we'll see what happens for all of you.
In 4 minutes.
Yes. Hopefully you set your VCRs if you still have VCRs, or your DVR as well. Governor, I want to look ahead, as the president is probably talking about his legislative priorities. I want to look ahead to your legislative priorities coming into the next legislative session. Obviously, it's never too early to start planning. But I think a lot of people probably in the room are like, oh geez, that's 10 months away. Why do we have to start planning now? Can't we just take another longer break? But I mean, there's a lot that goes into the legislative planning. So as you're thinking ahead to 2027 in January, what are some of your top priorities going into the next session?
Yeah, thank you for that. First, I want to say, I was the first Republican governor in 16 years. It was a little like clean up on aisle 4, 5, 6, and 7 to get us back on a track. And the people of Montana were very clear. We wanted an environment where entrepreneurs could prosper so that we could create jobs so our kids and grandkids didn't have to leave the state to pursue the American dream. That's why I got elected, and that's what we went to work on. We've significantly reduced income taxes. We had the highest rate in the Rocky Mountain region at 6.9%. We've been able to lower that top rate to 5.4. That's significant. There's more we need to do. We've increased the exemption on business equipment tax. We've protected Montana's rights. We've, through very tight fiscal budgeting, we've been able to pay off all the state debt. Montana is completely debt-free. We've now repealed or streamlined 35% of all the regulations in the state. So we have a couple of things we're going to work on this next session because there's still a few rocks in the rock pile. Although we have made good progress going from 7 income tax brackets to 2, we're not quite at a flat tax yet. That's a goal that I have. Best policy around tax is to get to a flat tax. I'd like to see that. Most Montanans today pay 4.7% on their income. I'd like to get everybody to 4.7. If you make more, you pay more. If you make less, you pay less. The real advantage of a flat tax is once you get there, it's very hard for future legislatures to raise it because they got to raise the tax on everybody, right? So the penalty's higher. So number 1 is flat tax. Number 2, I'd say we still charge an annual sales tax on all farm and small business equipment. We've made progress. We raised the exemption on small business equipment from $100,000 to $1 million for every farm, ranch, and Main Street business. I'd like to see it higher. I don't know how far we can go. I am a big proponent. I think kids get better outcomes in education when parents can control the direction of that education and make the best decision for them. We've enacted good policy and parental choice. We increased the caps on our tax credit. We've gone to open enrollments to create competition between public schools. We now allow homeschoolers and independent school students to play on public school sports teams and to participate in after school. But there's more we need to do. We just opted into the president's freedom of education tax credit that was part of the big beautiful bill. But I would like to see us get to universal school choice, so that's a priority. And then the other thing that's been a great concern to us is the impact of social media on our minors, young people. We've seen increased suicide, we've seen depression, we've seen addiction. So we're working to get some protections for minors on social media. So those would be the 4 that I'd hit.
Expand education choice as much as we possibly can, because as we've seen in the other states, it's starting to be enormously successful in helping so many kids who don't necessarily have those opportunities.
Well, I think the goal in all education policy has to be to help every student reach their full potential. And that comes in a couple of dimensions. One is having choice for parents so they can pick it. I mean, people of means have choice because they can decide. It's really lower income families that are trapped in a school that may or may not be a good fit. We've made a lot of progress in this area, making it easier for homeschool students and independent school students to play on public school sports teams is a big addition. Mom is not going to start a football team in the backyard, right? And some kids make high school decisions about whether they can play basketball or football. It's a big deal. Or music, or partial enrollment in a public school. You know, mom may be a great teacher, but she may not be prepared to teach calculus. They can go to the public school, enroll for one course now in the public school. The other thing that we're very passionate about is 40% of our graduates in Montana choose not to go to college. And they're still individuals with great talents that have a great career future in front of them. This is why we've worked really hard to bring the private sector closer to K through 12 education with our workplace learning experiences. This is a law that we advocated for, working with the legislature. I signed into law in 2021 and allows high school students to spend 2 to 20 hours a week in a local business and get high school graduation credit for it. And what that does is, why do little kids want to, when you ask them what do you want to be when you grow up, they say I want to be a policeman or I want to be a fireman. It's because that's what they see, right? So Kalispell now, for example, is taking 3rd graders on field trips to local machine shops and diesel mechanics and law offices and medical clinics to broaden their horizons. If they see that stuff, it creates a dream that they then choose to pursue. So I think more public-private partnerships in education is going to be critically important.
Before I step away from the legislative session, I just want to highlight something. On our website, you have what's called WONK, which is our legislative AI tracking tool that basically keeps count of all of the bills that are introduced during the legislative session from all of our different states. In the last legislative session, our friends over at the Capitol building, as you know, Governor, introduced more than 1,700 pieces of legislation. So I guess my question to you is, you want more? You want less? What do you think about those numbers? I mean, some of the other states are more, some of the other states are less.
That's a lot. I talked to other governors. One governor said, oh, I was so busy, I got 54 bills. This last session, I got over 900 bills to my desk. That's passing the House and the Senate. And some of them were good. But personally, I'd like to see more scrutiny and have fewer bills. When I was in the U.S. House, a bill didn't get a hearing in committee if the chairman didn't approve it. It didn't get a vote on the floor if the speaker didn't allow it. We don't have some of those. I know I applaud the legislators who are here with us. You sacrifice a lot, you're not properly paid, you come to Helena, you put your life on hold, and you've got your handful of ideas you want to introduce, but we've got 150 legislators, they all have half a dozen ideas. It's a lot of bills.
Absolutely. Go to Mountain States Policy, click on WONK, you can read all the legislation. It will actually read the legislation for you within seconds and then give you an explanation of what the legislation is.
And if I could make one other comment, and a lot of these bills have price tags associated with them. And I think that I'm a limited government person. I think that we need government for very good reasons to make and enforce the laws, infrastructure. This is why some of critical infrastructure like internet or prison systems or mental health facilities, investing in our schools for the future of our kids, I'm all on board with that. But this last session, I ended up having to veto almost $400 million in new spending. But the net result was a budget that grew state spending less than 1% per year. So how do we ultimately let Montanans keep more of what they've worked so hard to earn? It's by slowing the growth of government. Milton Friedman once said, nothing's more permanent than a temporary government program. Once it's in place, it's very hard to remove it. But what we've done is we've slowed the growth of government. Every single budget that I've signed into law since I took office grew state spending less than the rate of inflation. And this last session, it was significantly less than. Now, we have not done that on the back of public employees. I mean, I've advocated for robust raises. I think a worker is due their wages, but we've done it by finding efficiencies in other areas and not planting acorns that turn into mighty oaks down the road that we have to water and feed and trim. So I think fiscal responsibility puts us in a position to ultimately affect this prosperity that I started with, which is the goal of our administration.
I want to get into some, what you might refer to as separation of powers talk. As we know, some may like, some may not like some of the recent rulings by the Montana Supreme Court. And there are some reform proposals out there. You can call them reform proposals, you can just call them proposals if you'd like. What is your thought on the current status, the current job that the Montana Supreme Court is doing? And I don't want to ask you to grade them, but is it ripe for reform? Do we need reform with the court?
Let me think about that. Yes. I talked about this in my State of the State last year, calling out the Supreme Court justices individually for their activism. They have stepped way outside their bounds. I think a very simple reform, Texas has done it, other states have done it. These Supreme Court justices we have in Montana are nonpartisan in name only, and the elections are not transparent. Montanans don't know who they're voting for. I think allowing Supreme Court justices in their election to optionally declare a party affiliation would give Montana voters insight into how they would rule from the bench. So I think this is one of, we enacted educational savings accounts for children with disabilities. They said that was unconstitutional. They've been overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court many times. The Espinoza v. Department of Revenue. Ultimately, that was a good result because the Blaine Amendment was eliminated in 38 states. We passed a very robust charter school bill. They said that was unconstitutional. So at many turns, they have impeded the will of the people in a way that is inconsistent with the separation of powers.
Just a couple more questions here before we let you go, Governor. I wonder if, obviously you're heading into one of your final legislative sessions here.
My last.
The last legislative session. Do you think about what people will say about Governor Greg Gianforte 30, 40, 50 years from now? What do you want to be remembered as? What kind of governor?
Well, I mentioned at the beginning, I ran so that we wouldn't have to export our kids and grandkids and to protect the Montana way of life. So if when I'm done, they say, he got our economy going and he protected our way of life, that's enough for me.
And what are you going to do after you're done? There you go, yeah. What are you going to do after you're done being governor?
Well, my 6th grandchild is due in June, and I think that can be very engaging.
Yeah, absolutely. Governor Gian